You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh God, the boss has crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
Who said it? Kanye West or Thomas
we
Paine?
will not raw dog reality for that one.
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
The Scab Buster.
It's gonna be wholly unprofessional.
Eight together strong. Let that be your mantra.
If we had a podcast, we'd podcast in the morning. We'd podcast in the evening. We'd podcast all over this land. We'd podcast out of danger, podcast out of warning, and podcast out of love between our brothers and our sisters and everything in between all over this land. Gabe, today is Pete Seeger's birthday.
Is it really?
As of recording, yes.
Oh,
So happy birthday, Pete.
happy birthday to Pete indeed.
Gabe, my name is Sam. Your name is Gabe.
Supposedly.
This is the Labor John podcast, where we talk all about the working class history of Philadelphia and the surrounding world. And today, unless you have any other pressing matters at hand,
I don't.
we're going to get right into it. What are we going to talk about today, Gabe?
So I want to preface this by letting everyone know we used to be a real country, a proper country with trains,
Oh, God.
and the people that owned those trains also tended to own coal and iron mines.
Oh, this is
Uh,
bad.
And the people who worked on those trains and in those mines didn't like the people that owned the trains and the mines. We're going to talk about 3 strikes
What? No,
that-
we don't have the time.
that all happened concurrently
Okay.
and all kind of tied into each other.
All right.
So the 1870 or the 1887 Reading Railroad strike and the 1887 to 1888 Pennsylvania anthracite strike.
Oh. Strap yourselves
So-
in, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between.
We're-
We're going to be going into
This
it
is
here.
get ready to be
Gabe,
confused.
hold on. Okay. Oh,
Oh.
there you go. You disappeared for a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, all I said was get ready to be confused. um, but let's set the stage here. So, Pennsylvania Anthracite Basin. We've talked about this a little bit with Mitch Troutman
Yes.
and the bootleg coal miners. But basically, section of the Appalachian Mountain chain in eastern Pennsylvania, which has the largest known seam of anthracite coal in the world,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anthracite is like really high carbon content, super dense, hard coal. And it burns really cleanly, burns really hot. And so it was very popular, both for trains and home heating and stuff like that. And anywhere where you didn't want a lot of soot buildup, which would then catch fire and cause more problems.
Okay.
And that's different from bituminous, which is like oily and has more impurities and all of that. Anyway, coal fascinates me because it's just dead plant matter that
Coal fascinates me.
it's like, I mean, we should cease all use of fossil fuels except for historical interpretation. At which point, then you can spend like 3 hours discussing the different types of coal.
All right, Gabe. We got to
anyway.
move on, buddy. This
Yep.
is a 3-hour episode.
But end of the 19th century, with the prevalence of both steam engines for industrial purposes and trains, and coal furnace heating for homes,
Mm-hmm.
anthracite coal was in very, very high demand.
Okay.
And that meant that lots and lots of people were employed in mining the coal. Now, the Pennsylvania anthracite gets subdivided down into 3 other regions.
Oh, God.
Yeah, like I said, this is going to be confusing. Each region is served by different rail systems, which is how they all got divvied up basically. So you have the Wyoming Lackawanna region, which is at the top, and that's served by the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad, as well as the Delaware Hudson Canal, and that just moved coal up to New York City.
Okay.
That's all you
Writing this
need.
down.
Yeah, that's all you need to know about Wyoming Lackawanna.
Okay.
So then the Lehigh region, served by the Lehigh Valley Railroad, that shipped coal either to Philly or New York. And then you have the Schuylkill region, which is the farthest south one, that was served by the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, and it shipped coal to Philly.
Okay.
So it all kind of makes sense when you see it on a map, but
You mapatized it quite well, Gabe. Thank you.
well, thank you. Mapatizing is a good word.
I appreciate you.
And,
I appreciate you, Gabe.
so initially all of these coal fields were owned by like small, like mom and pop coal barons is almost the best way to describe it. Like as small little independent collieries that had like maybe a couple hundred or maybe 1,000 acres, and they would carve out like their own little fiefdom and have absolute control over everything that happened in that little space of land.
I mean, I would too.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that a little old mom and pop coal mine business.
Yeah.
We should go into the coal mining business. Me and you, Gabe.
You know, it's a growth industry. I think it's the way to go. It's the fuel of the future, Sam.
It's a hot business, hot commodity.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Musk to say that electric cars are too woke for him and just go to like coal powered. The next Cybertruck model is going to be powered by coal.
Oh God. It just
Okay.
catches fire. The mobile.
Okay, so the Lehigh and Wyoming Lackawanna regions, they actually consolidated relatively early. So like big companies came in and bought up huge tracts of land.
Huge tracts of land.
Mm-hmm. The Schuylkill region, that stayed like almost entirely owned by small independent lines or coal mines until 1871, when the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad purchased 70,000 acres of coal field.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
So this basically just gave them a monopoly on like extracting the coal and shipping the coal and then selling the coal.
Oh.
So
I'm just waiting for the worker aspect of this story to come in.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be jolly.
Yeah. So by the end of the 1870s, you had all three regions almost completely run by this like absentee owner class of coal baron.
Okay.
And they this created a weird sort of alliance between local business owners and the miners, because the local business owners tended to dislike the coal companies, because they recognized that they weren't necessarily in competition with them, but they didn't have to be scared of them, because as they said, no matter how much money you have, you can't mine coal except for where God put it.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're like a local business owner in a town, you know that coal company isn't going to leave that town because the coal's there.
Yeah, but I mean, they can push you the hell out.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that was also one of the things where like they felt like they were just as much under the boot of the company as the miners were. So they had like a little bit of solidarity. Yeah. Now that was different with the railroad, or with the Schuylkill region, where you had the railroad owning the coal mine, because then the business owners tended to think of the railroad more positively because they were doing business with it regularly.
Yeah.
And it was also like, that's how all of your goods that you sold in your store got shipped in.
Yeah.
So if they blacklisted you, you were really screwed. So the Schuylkill region was a little bit more anti-worker. So the workers in these mines were, of course, not entirely without agency. They had some organizing going on. So the Knights of Labor were very active up in the coal fields.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, coal.
And so they actually organized a strike around Scranton, or organized miners around Scranton into a strike in 1877 in response to a 10% wage cut. The strike ended because coal operators promised to restore wages when the price of coal rose.
Okay.
So not a great victory because you're just kind of getting a very hollow promise. So after that strike and the Molly Maguires incident, which was also, or at least in 1877 and 1878, was when the miners from the Molly Maguire, or the miners who were accused of being members of the Molly Maguires, allegedly, were hanged around some dubious claims of murder and light industrial sabotage. This is normal Saturday night stuff.
Yeah. Well, what's an Irishman gonna do, Gabe?
Yeah. So union activity dipped a fair bit after both of those. And there was also like a lessening of public support for unions, but there wasn't like organizing was still happening, just not to the point of getting that like critical mass for a strike.
Yeah.
Now, while all of that was going on, and while union activity dipped, wages and conditions in the coal mine kept getting worse as well. Yep. So between 1876 and 1887, anthracite mining in Pennsylvania claimed 2,703 lives.
Damn.
And that was just the mine accidents that got recorded. So we don't know like all of the other people that were dying from poverty and black lung. Yeah. And like all of the other side effects of being a poor coal miner.
All the fun stuff, Gabe.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah, this is a fun podcast.
The stuff they put on the benefits package.
Yeah.
What we offer you, black lung.
So you joke about the benefits package, but there was a study of anthracite coal miners. I think, if I remember correctly, it was from an Englishman who was trying to show that like Pennsylvania miners were doing much better off than the English coal miners. Okay. And so he came out to the Pennsylvania anthracite and was just like, oh God, it's just as bad here.
Yeah. I mean, all right. I mean, he went for like a fact-finding mission or just like the flex?
Fact-finding mission.
Okay.
And then reported back and wrote up a whole report basically concluding like, yeah, no, it's just as bad here. Coal miners have a shit job everywhere.
I mean, he could have just like gone to Wales too. I mean,
yeah,
he could have gone just like right next door.
Yeah, but then he'd have to care about Welsh people, and
you'd have to go to Wales.
That's a little too far. Where
are we at with Welsh jokes in society, Gabe? Do I have to cut that one out? Or are we good?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. There's no Welshmen who listen to this program.
Aren't you Welsh?
I don't listen to this program, Gabe.
That's a fair point. You just edit it.
I don't even edit. I just let it roll.
That counts as editing. You'll upload it.
I click a few buttons. You know. What I
Yeah. Anyway, so additionally to all the low wages, they were forced to buy equipment from the company to work in the
Yeah.
mines.
mean? Yeah.
This is tale as old as time. And so interestingly, this was more of a problem in the independent mines, which is where you tended to see like company housing and company stores and getting paid in script.
Yeah.
In the big industrial owned mines, they basically figured they have enough economic and political will power behind them that they don't need to like squeeze everyone.
Mm-hmm.
They can just tell the town what to do and it'll
I
do
love
it.
that. Though.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they're not getting paid in books, Gabe.
Yes, it's true.
God forbid.
I guess company script is...
Yeah, a bunch of poor German families getting paid in books.
That's still my I will always say that union busting tactics and like boss shittiness hasn't actually changed in the past 250 years, but that one still remains as uniquely bad. Anyway, so there was a study of workers in one of the independently owned mines that actually showed a family of miners, not just one miner, but a whole family of coal miners.
Okay.
Ended up in debt after a month of wages.
Well, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm not a mathematician or an economist, Gabe, but it seems like when you work, you should have more money, not less.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
That would be the theory. So to lay everything out, you had one boy who worked 253 hours. He ended the month making $17.45. Another boy worked 236 hours. He made $18.57. The father, or the man of the house, worked 249 hours. He made $29.38. Total wages for the whole household was $65.40. Now, they had $61.40 of outstanding debt.
Oh my God.
So that's most of that gone already. Then they had 75 cents to the team, or paid to the team, which is the team of forces that hauled the coal out of the mine.
God.
Then
even the horses get a cut?
I mean, that probably was actually going to like feed and stable the horses. So yeah, the horses do get a cut.
Well, as fellow workers, good.
Yes. Then to rent a 3-room house, they were charged $2.50. To heat that house with coal, they were charged $1.50. So total charges were $66.16, which left them, after a month of work, 75 cents in debt.
Oh my God.
Then they spent $47.46 at the company store to like feed and clothe themselves.
What? Why would you do that?
I know. So they finished the month at $48.21 in debt.
In the hole. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I kind of want to post this to like one of the home finance subreddits and just be like, can you help me?
Don't say what year was.
Yeah. This is my family budget. Can you help me?
Wait a minute, you're paying $2.50 for a room and board? What the? Where do you live?
Okay, so
I mean, this family, they could have just gone and got a payday loan, Gabe.
Clearly.
All of their problems would have been fixed.
Yeah. They actually, I had never thought about it, but really company script is just corporate instituted payday loans.
Yeah.
And that makes me sad. That makes me very sad to realize that we didn't actually move past company script. We just outsourced it.
This is the saddest Gabe has ever been in his life.
Oh my god. Yeah.
This is how he expresses it. He just says it.
I knew I was already depressed going into this episode. Anyway. So these conditions are basically...
I'm the asshole coming into all these episodes smiling and shit and trying to make a joke, and you're like, this is gonna be bad, Sam.
Yeah. Well, so those conditions were bad, but they also provided the main impetus to continue organizing.
Sure.
Because that's what happens. So in addition to the Knights of Labor, who were still kind of organizing behind the scenes, in the Schuylkill region, you had the Miners and Laborers Amalgamated Association, the MLAA.
Mala.
Yeah.
The Mala.
Mala. So this was like a loose association of English, Welsh, and German miners that notably excluded some of the newer immigrants. But that was mostly because the Irish miners, who were the newer immigrants at this point, preferred the Knights of Labor.
Okay.
So they all basically all the Irishmen were going to the Knights, and then all of the other mining communities were going to the Amalgamated.
I think they were all attracted by the secretness of the Knights of Labor at the time.
As we have learned, especially in this period, if you set up a secret society, there's going to be an Irishman that just wants to join. Which, in terms of ethnic and cultural stereotypes, I think that's one of the better ones.
I'll take it.
So Knights were also organizing, and then in 1885, the Knights of Labor and UMLA decided to not really combine, but they agreed to cooperate.
Okay.
So they set up a joint committee to coordinate with each other.
Okay.
Then
Gabe, future reference, do not cup your hand in front of the microphone again.
Good point.
Unless you want to emphasize something. You're like, Mara.
Fair enough. I hope that stays in.
You got it, buddy.
So by August 1887, the combined executive board issued a demand for a 15% wage increase across the board. So they wanted everyone's wages to go up 15%, and said that any operator who refused to cooperate would be subjected to a strike by September 10th.
Okay.
Now, they weren't as organized in the northern coal fields, so up in the Lackawanna, the Wyoming Lackawanna region. So the strike demand basically just wasn't heeded by any of the miners up there. Okay. So basically, nothing really changed up in Wyoming Lackawanna. But in the Lehigh and the Schuylkill regions, they did actually get a lot of concessions. In the Schuylkill region, Philadelphia and Reading Railroad offered negotiations to evade a strike, and they eventually got to an agreement where they got an 8% wage increase until January 1st, 1888. Then basically they said, we'll renegotiate in January.
Okay.
So there was relative peace in the Schuylkill coalfields, but in the Lehigh, because you had all these smaller independent collieries up there, they had 20,000 miners on strike.
Damn.
Against a variety of different small independent collieries. And those miners either found work by moving to the other coal fields So they would go from Lehigh to Schuylkill, or they were surviving on donations from both the Knights of Labor and other miners who were still working. So now, December 1887, 20,000 miners on strike, and then stuff in Philly started to heat up. Now we're going to move to the other part of this story, which is the train workers the trainmen on the Reading Railroad in Philly. So Reading Railroad's coal operations brought coal from the Schuylkill Basin to Philly. Then once it was in the city, it was distributed to customers like private homes who were heating furnaces. And then they also had literally a mile-long section of the Delaware River waterfront that was just piers to load coal ships.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this ran from Cumberland Street all the way up to Allegheny Avenue, up in Port Richmond.
Where's Cumberland at?
I would have to bring it back up on a map. It's like, where...
It's down by like South Philly?
No, this is up in Port Richmond.
Oh, okay.
So like where...
I was about to say, that was very long.
Yeah. No, this is basically where the Delaware does that sharp turn to east. That first mile after that turn was all Pennsylvania Railroad, or Reading and Philadelphia Railroad. And it was also like all train tracks. Like looking at the map of it, you had 2 train lines coming in, and then it just branches off into like 20.
How did that make you feel, Gabe?
It made me upset that we don't have that anymore. I want to breathe not just smog, but coal dust smog from a train engine. It's my God-given right as an American.
Like the good old days, Gabe.
Yeah. So they also just built a new pier at William Street, and that was supposed to be used for just general cargo. When the pier finally opened, though, the Knights of Labor, who they had organized all of the train workers, or the rail workers, discovered that the company that operated the elevator on the pier, so Reading Railroad owns the pier.
Yeah.
They contracted out to the Taylor and Williams, or the Taylor and Sons elevator company, to operate the elevator which would lift goods onto the ships.
Okay.
And Taylor and Sons did not use union labor.
Mm-hmm.
So the Knights of Labor got upset about that, and argued that Taylor and Sons was paying $9 a week for their elevator workers. The Knights demanded that they raise their wages, either hire union labor or raise the wages to $10 to $10.50.
Okay.
Because that was the going rate for a Knights of Labor worker on an elevator. So
I don't think that sentence has ever been uttered before.
So upon learning about it, on Thursday, December 22nd, railroad crews refused to deliver coal, demanding that the workers be replaced with union men. The company responded by firing the 5 railroad crews that refused to come in to deliver.
Okay.
And idled their trains in the roundhouse at Port Richmond. Shortly afterwards, a delegation made up of Ambrose Heed, the master workman of coal handlers, assembly number 6285.
All right, calm down there, Ambrose.
I just love Knights of Labor titles because they're absurd.
Because they're books.
Yeah. Then the secretaries of local or assembly number 6285, Bernard Sharkey and Henry Bennett.
All right.
So they went to speak with Superintendent Swigard to
All right,
make
these names got to calm down. All these names got to go. I mean, Sharky in 1887.
Yeah. So they went to Swigard to make their demands known. Swigard was the superintendent, and he basically said, "Fuck off."
Yeah, I mean, what would you expect from Superintendent Swigard?
Exactly. So then the next day, Friday the 23rd, Port Richmond was weirdly flooded with cops. Police lieutenants from 10 districts around Philly were ordered to report to the Port Richmond station at Clearfield and Belgrade streets with 1 sergeant and 20 officers each.
Damn.
So that was about 200 police officers from around the city showing up. And then they were supplemented by the 100 police that were already in Port Richmond.
Were there college kids pitching tents and singing folk songs?
Not even that yet. Like, so they all stayed in the police station until about 2 p.m. when a captain came in and took command, and then they headed down towards the railroad tracks. So the rail workers, who were not yet actually on strike, like, you had the 5 cars that had, or the 5 trains that had been idled.
Yeah.
But that was like 30 guys.
Okay.
And technically they just had, or basically the company just laid off 30 workers, and that's it. So that's all that's happened now. But now all of a sudden 300 cops show up at, like, out of fucking nowhere.
Here's your tax dollars.
Yeah. And the rail workers who had just been, like, doing their normal job, looked up and saw 300 cops walking towards them.
This is fine.
Yeah. So everything got a lot more tense. And then all of a sudden the company started engine number 288, which was one of the ones that had been idled earlier. So that was supposed to stay idled, and because their crew had been fired, they were using a scab crew to start the engine back up.
Yeah.
The men didn't interfere with this, but word got passed by, like, a chain of secret communication to the 3 strike leaders, or the 3 guys that went to meet with Swigard, because they had been basically watching the train yard with the 30 fired workers, just watching all of this unfold. So the
30 fired workers were just there in the train yard?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine.
The other thing is that it doesn't seem like there was a fence or anything around this. It was just like open industrial plot.
Okay.
That everyone can just walk onto.
All right. And they're just like NPCs. They got fired and they just like just like they're just there.
Yep.
All right.
Waiting for the next task.
Which is 300 cops.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God, Gabe.
So they got alerted to the fact that this engine was started back up.
Okay.
Then as trains came and left the yard, they were used to carry messages between the workers in the yard and all these guys watching. Yeah. Then around 4:45 p.m., a train blew its whistle 5 times, and every worker laid down their tools and walked away.
Oh.
Yeah. Every freight engine was taken to the roundhouse. Its boilers were quenched, or its fires were quenched, and their steam was bled off. And then they had 14 what they called wharf rats, which I'm assuming were like smaller train engines just for pulling stuff around.
Okay. Tug trains.
Yeah, basically. And those were placed in their sidings. All of their steam was bled off and their fires were quenched. So then everyone just walked up to the Mutual Hall at it was then Neff, but is now Indiana and Richmond Streets. And they declared if management didn't concede and reinstate the fired workers, they'd shut down all passenger service on the Reading Railroad, and no trains would move unless they carried U.S. mail.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Mhm.
I like that they're letting mail through.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's the Knights of Labor. They're very gentlemanly. They don't want to be too disruptive here. So the police kept patrolling the area, but basically had nothing to do because the Knights of Labor they were very, very strict, made sure no one was drinking, made sure that there was no vandalism and no violence at all. So everything was very controlled. And there were actually a lot of reports of the police not knowing why they were there. Because
that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Well, because they were told, you have to go... Well, one, the lieutenants that were called up were never actually told why. They were just told to report to the Port Richmond station and then await further instructions. And then the captain that went and organized or got all of them didn't seem to tell them anything and was just like, we're going to go walk down to the rail yard and stand around.
Okay. I'm love that they can just do this.
Yeah. So that basically Thursday and Friday was just tense, but
what a weird day.
Kind of awkward. Yeah. And just very strange. Then that Saturday, the Knights held a district convention, so everyone in Philly, where they ordered everyone who worked for the Reading Railroad out on strike, except for those working on passenger service and watchmen. So they moved back a little bit from saying that they were going to cut passenger service. They didn't strike the passenger lines.
Okay.
And then the watchmen that would patrol the roundhouses and make sure that the rail yard wasn't getting vandalized or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Then...
Well, I think they probably want to keep the good graces of the public.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they wouldn't do that, They want to, go all in right away.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. So, strike committee had been going around and bragging about how much solidarity they had, and said that not a single man would return to work until December 28th, which was the next Wednesday. And then this guy, John T. Lee, who was the chairman of the relief committee for the Lehigh miners, the 20,000 miners who are still on strike, started telling people that the railroad company had conceded to the workers' demands.
No?
And said that they should all return to work.
No! What are you doing?
So everyone came back to work on Wednesday.
What happened to the good communication?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The company issued a statement that no such agreement had been made.
Oh,
and that they would and that they wouldn't fire the scabs that they had hired to replace everyone. So basically, you had to go and apply for your old job again.
You had to fight for your job.
Mm-hmm. So they also handed out handbills to everyone, disparaging the Knights and basically making fun of them.
Oh, this is not good.
So from what I can tell, there was the negotiation committee was actually under the impression that the demands would be decided in arbitration if the strike ended. So because they did say the strike would be until Wednesday the 28th.
Yeah.
Then this guy, John Lee, showed up and started saying that the company had conceded. And so everyone figured okay, we'll go back to work and we'll get, everyone will get reinstated.
Yeah.
And then that didn't happen. And then everyone was pissed. And but they didn't know, like, it wasn't clear to the workers if the negotiation committee was lying to them or if John Lee was.
Yeah.
The
Are we going to get into that? Or are we just going to leave
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Oh, we will. So
Oh,
John
good.
Lee
Oh, good.
started talking to the press
Oh,
and
no.
said that the strike should have never been called in the first place.
Oh,
Instead, saying that the focus of the Knights of Labor in Philly should just be on not inconveniencing the public. Rather, they should just raise funds for the miners in the Lehigh region. And he was also saying that the conservative leadership in the Knights of Labor is finally now back in power against the radical elements which had called the strike.
Oh, God.
Now, the workers at the 9th and Green Street Assembly, who basically worked at the 9th and Green Roundhouse, so all of the trains that were stationed there, they were furious because that's most of who had been fired. Those 30 guys were almost all, or from my understanding, were almost all from 9th and Green. And they had been replaced by scabs. Now the company was refusing to rehire them. So they declared that the strike would continue if their demands weren't met. And they blamed Lee for the failure of the strike. So December 28th, they had a general convention of the Knights, of all of the Knights of Labor who worked for the Reading and Philadelphia Railroad.
Do these guys have conventions every other week?
Yes,
okay.
Effectively. That's what I have learned from reading about this strike, is they had a lot of conventions.
There's not much to do in the 1880s back then.
Yeah. So this was intended to settle the question of calling a general strike of everyone who worked for the Reading Company. But basically the leadership was against calling a strike, but there was a lot of dissent from the workers who did want that strike because they recognized that that was the only way to get their demands met.
Yeah.
So you had that divide, and then to add to that, Local 10235, or 10,235, which was the local assembly representing the workers from 9th and Green Street, the really pissed off ones, which it was around 1,000 men in total, voted to disband and leave the Knights over their frustrations with the conduct of the strike.
Shit.
Then, to complicate things further, coal handlers and coal passers and small engine drivers in Port Richmond went back out on strike.
Oh, God.
Against the railroad. So now you have...
What a cluster.
Yeah. So you have guys from the Lehigh mine coming in and spreading lies and fucking up your first strike. You have 1,000 men disbanding their local because they're pissed off at you for how that strike happened. And then you have a whole bunch of other guys going on strike, basically going on a wildcat because they're pissed at you because the strike ended.
Yeah.
So to add to that, the convention was basically expected to just be controlled by the coal miners, because the way it was set up, it was everyone who worked for the Philadelphia and Reading, which included everyone working in the Cortland iron mines.
Yeah.
Which greatly outnumbered all of the rail workers.
Sure. I mean, it takes a lot more people to operate a coal mine. I would think that one would run like a train line. Like you said, there's only like 30 for 5 trains.
Yeah.
6 per. So I'm sure they would outnumber them.
Yeah. So they had, there were only, I didn't get a number on the full size of the convention, but 200 delegates were from Philly, and they were less than half. So probably like 500 or 600 delegates in total or something. So they traveled out to Reading for the convention. And then the news. Okay, yeah. So news of both the dissolution.
How do you think I feel,
of,
Gabe, with this episode?
writing this was rough. Okay, so
I'm surprisingly following this surprisingly well, and it's scary because this is an odd story.
Yeah. So once news of the strikes or the Wildcat strikes happening in Philly reached the convention, then they decided to vote on whether or not to call a general strike.
Okay.
The next day, December 30th, 30 of the delegates from Philadelphia boarded the 11:45 train from Reading. When they got to Bridgeport, PA, which is right outside of Norristown, they announced to the workers there that the general strike, or as they called it, the Great Strike, was back on.
All right.
So all 9 of the Philadelphia local assemblies voted to strike. Sorry, I left one thing out. So the 200 delegates that were sent to Reading.
Yeah.
The day after they went to Reading, the Reading Railroad fired all of them.
Oh, okay.
So they got news of the strike happening, and all of them were fired. And that's when they voted on going on strike.
I wonder what they're voting for now.
Yeah. So all 9 local assemblies in Philadelphia voted to go on strike to demand the reinstatement of those 200 delegates.
Okay.
So
can I ask a question? You might have said it, but you might have gone over it. How about the 30 who lost their jobs earlier? Are they still out of work? Or are they still just putzing around in that train yard?
Yeah, they're still out of work. Just to be clear, strike demands have gone from don't use or use union labor in the elevator.
Right? Yeah.
Then that changed to reinstate the 30 fired workers. Then that changed to I have no fucking clue what the coal passers were striking for, because that was never stated. And now we're at reinstate the 200 delegates that got fired.
I'm honestly on the coal and the train company side right now. I'm sorry. Because they're like, what do you... pick one. What do you want? We'll give it to you. Just stop.
Oh, I forgot to add.
Oh, fuck me.
One other demand, because this is the Great Strike against the Reading,
of course,
which includes the miners. They were demanding the continuation of their 8% wage increase after January 1st.
Okay.
So, company, of course, refused to grant the extension. January 3rd, the miners at technically the Philadelphia and Reading Coal and Iron Company, which is the same thing as the Pennsylvania or Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, they went out on strike as well.
All right.
Then independent coal owners in the Lehigh region tried to avoid the strike by paying higher wages. But because the Reading Railroad had a monopoly on freight transport, the union miners who went back to work would then refuse to load the trains because the trains were being operated by scab crews.
Jesus.
So, this is a complicated ass thing. So
I need a PowerPoint presentation for this one, man.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, like, the IWW makes a lot more sense of just one union. Nothing, just
right.
Just I'm sick of this shit. Just one union.
That's it.
We all just go on strike together. That's it. So the Knights then used that to their advantage, because they tried to get the independent coal miners the independent coal companies on their side by going to Pennsylvania government and arguing that the Reading Railroad broke the 1874 Constitution,
What?
which banned railroads from owning coal mines. Uh-huh.
Wait a minute. What? What?
Yeah.
This whole story didn't have to exist if we just followed the law?
Yes, except that the Reading Railroad purchased its coal mines in 1871, so it got grandfathered in.
Okay. All right.
Really convenient. Then on top of all of that, the company, predicting that they were going to be facing a strike at some point, invested very heavily into the coal and iron police.
Oh no. Friends of the show.
Yeah. So you had not only workers out on strike in the dead of winter, but you also had a massive police force like going through all of these towns.
Yeah.
And one that answered solely to the company. So
Much like today.
yeah. So the coal miners were trying to raise funds to maintain their strike from their fellow workers. But, and this is just my theory,
Oh no.
I think that the two simultaneous strikes ended up hurting each other
Yeah.
because no one had enough money to sustain the other.
All right. Yeah.
Because prior to this, like the Lehigh strike was maintained by Lehigh workers that went down to Schuylkill.
Yeah. They were working second or other jobs.
Yeah. As well as donations from the Knights of Labor in Philly. But now no one is making money.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, no one was really making that much money beforehand because everyone was finishing their month in debt. So like,
yeah, $47 in debt or however much it was. Yeah.
So then the workers in Lehigh were getting supported by local business owners because they were striking mostly against the independent coal operators. So they were getting donations and food and supplies and stuff from the local businesses, but they couldn't do that in the Schuylkill region because those local business owners liked the Reading Railroad and they didn't want to get blacklisted. So
Gabe,
yeah,
you remember that scene in It's Always Sunny when Mac goes down into the mailroom and Charlie's there with the board and the strings going to all these pictures? Mac, I got to tell you about the mail. Gabe, this is you right now.
If I smoked, I'd have like 4 or 5 cigarettes in my mouth right now.
I'm waiting for you to bring out Barney. Like, this is Barney.
So anyway,
oh God,
the strike leader Pepe Silvia.
I keep saying this name, Pepe Silvia. Pepe Silvia.
Not only do all of these people,
Gabe.
I just love that scene so much.
Not only are all these people on strike, but they have no money and they can't sustain each other.
Well, that's no concern for us. We got laid off on December 26th. Okay, so first crack in the strike, or in the miners' strike, appeared in February. In late January, the foreman at the William Penn Colliery in Shenandoah announced that he would reopen his mines in February. The workers were basically starving at this point.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. It was the dead of winter and no money. So
you're starving. That's understandable.
Yeah. When the William Penn Colliery reopened, almost all of its workers returned to work.
Okay.
Then that basically started like a cascade of
Yeah.
mine reopenings. And by February 17th, W.T. Lewis, the master workman of the Miners' National Assembly, ordered the workers back to work. So that's the Knights of Labor went back to work. Then 6 days later, the Miners and Laborers Amalgamated Association ordered their guys back to work as well.
Aw, not the Mala.
Yeah. So now the rail workers were still out on strike, and were left to basically fight the railroad by themselves. And so from what I can tell, the rail strike in Philly was almost entirely peaceful, and they didn't like try and prevent scabs from running trains. They didn't interrupt service or really anything.
I mean, were the 300 cops just still there, standing there with the...
Yeah. Like,
I like to think throughout this whole story is the 300 cops and the 30 workers who got fired just standing there.
that's basically what the descriptions of it were. Like,
they're just standing there waiting for you to go up to them to open up a dialogue box.
Yeah. The newspaper descriptions are literally talking about these guys standing around the rail yard with their hands in their pockets trying to stay warm. And that's what the strike looked like.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? Go home to your families? Goddamn.
There must have been one guy who just like forgot to tell his wife that they're on strike and kept leaving for work as if going to work every day. And his wife was just like, where's the money? Well,
as a father of a toddler, I feel that. I feel that sentiment. Going out for a pack of smokes, even though you don't smoke, Gabe.
Yep.
I love my family. What am I talking about, Gabe?
I was gonna say.
I know, right? It's so unlike me.
And Lucy is a strong-headed kid. She would come find you.
Oh God, she would sniff me out.
Yep.
She would go, Dada.
Mm.
Dada. I'm like, oh, God damn it. All right.
Basically, so basically they were just hanging around Port Richmond, both them and the cops. Weird Philly shit. And
just Philly things.
But if they caught anyone working for the company or breaking the strike, they would face a boycott, which meant that they were kicked out of the Knights, and they were basically like totally ostracized by the community.
All right.
Pardon me. So that like it was nonviolent, but still there's still some power and coercion in there.
Yeah.
So that like it's an effective tactic that did work very well.
You're doxing their ass, but I mean, it's all right.
Well, considering this was a time period when every time you got arrested, your full name and address was listed in the newspaper. Yeah, especially when it would be like, so-and-so, father of 4 children, at this address, got arrested on this date.
He always keeps the back door unlocked.
Yeah.
Don't know why I wrote that, but there it is.
Anyway, journalism is when you learn things and you put it on paper.
I'm a journaler. That should be at the end of our TMZ episode.
Yeah. But it was still a very cold winter, and they had no money.
Yeah.
So by March 14th, 1888, strike was called off. The railroad strike was called off. The men returned to work to apply, reapply for their jobs.
They got to do that.
Yeah. But then they found notices posted all over the rail yard that no man who was employed at the Port Richmond coal pier at any time during 1887 shall again be employed here in any capacity. Men already in possession of a diamond-shaped brass check are accepted. It is desirable that only Americans, Germans, or English speakers shall be employed.
Oh.
So the diamond shaped brass checks,
Yeah.
it was basically like a little brass token. Originally they were square, and then at some point the company changed them to a diamond shape.
Okay, Gabe. That's not the part of that I have a problem with. Is this the
Well, but it's still like the company didn't announce that until
Okay.
this point.
Yeah.
So they had this plan as a sneaky little fuck you that, oh, you don't have the right shaped brass plaque, you can't work here.
That's so stupid.
Yeah. Effectively, they just canceled everyone's work ID.
Yeah.
But yeah, so every railroad worker tried to get back to work and found out that nope, you're not allowed. And that was the
No.
Reading
No.
Coal and Railroad strike.
No. What?
Yep.
Gabe,
Yeah. It sucked.
we need happy endings.
I
Every
know.
episode needs happy endings.
Well,
We gotta try to monetize this shit.
the happy ending that I pull, well, not happy ending, but the interesting story that I pull from this is we have seen a lot of like rank and file insurgency in the labor movement in the past couple years.
Yes.
And it's just interesting to see it because like a lot of this was the very conservative leadership of the Knights of Labor honestly just kind of being shitty.
Yeah.
And not actually listening to the workers.
Not the first time that the Knights of Labor have done that.
Yes.
And it won't be the last.
They had that weird combination of being very hands-off when a local wanted to be extremely racist, but then being very hands-on when workers were saying, hey, we want this demand.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to see that happening. And then also, the more I dug into this and realized how much of a clusterfuck of a strike it was.
What a convoluted story.
Yeah.
I mean, if I followed this as well as I think I did, Gabe, I think the listeners have probably sailed through the thing. But my God, it's all over the place. I mean, my brain hurts. I have to edit this, Gabe. That's a question. Do I have to edit this?
I'm fine with releasing it raw.
That's we can do it raw.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, that was the 1887 to 1888 Reading and Philadelphia Railroad Company rail and coal strike, and also the Lehigh Valley coal strike was also involved.
Okay, you're gonna have to send me over the title of that one.
The shit that happened between 1887 and 1888.
I think we have to make this a two-parter just for the title of the episode.
Yeah.
No, but well, I was thinking earlier in the episode, before we even got into the bad parts, I was like, the labor movements, all told, have had kind of good resurgence. They've been doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we do need to be knocked down a few pegs, Gabe. Thanks a lot for this episode because I think we've done it right here.
You're welcome.
All right.
And
yeah, what do we do now, Gabe?
We're happy because the grad workers at UPenn voted 95% to unionize.
There you go.
So that's the happy thing.
That was a very large margin too.
Oh God, yeah. Was it 1807 to 95 or something?
Yeah, it was a lot. So congratulations to them.
Yeah.
That was some big news today in the labor sphere of Philadelphia and the surrounding world.
And
all right, let's sign off.
Have a good night. Thank you for listening. That was a podcast.
I love you.
I love you.